wanted to do some Bach. I haven't done Bach in years. It's been a long time. So I picked up as a C minor partita and the D minor concerto. And the D minor concerto is a lot, younger Bach and less sophisticated Bach than the partita. So it's kind of a good training ground for the partita for me. So I have to probably today, or I might play it for my kids at school, for more of my classes. I played it for a class yesterday with another pianist friend of mine. So it went well. So hopefully let's go with it. Yeah, it's just fun. It's just Bach. I've been playing a lot of romantic for years. It's nice to change it up and go back a little bit. And,
yes, I don't usually associate you with Bach.
Nice. I don't think I've ever played Bach here
No.
for a studio. I've done Bach pieces, of course, but never for a performance here.
Neat.
Yeah. So we'll see how this goes. It's still pretty fresh and new and fun. And I appreciate Ellen for taking time out of a busy schedule.
Ellen, do you need a page turner?
No.
In the first movement only. cut a bar and she saved my butt. I guess.
Can you record the whole thing?
Yeah, I can just
Ellen, because Brianna would like to hear this.
Sure.
You got a recording of that?
Yeah, I did.
Awesome.
As you heard,
Beautiful, wonderful.
the energy, the positive energy of the Bach, he believed. He wasn't questioning and torturing as a later composer would. Now, the later composer that we spoke of coming next was Robert Schumann.
Robert.
Now that's
Quite a
we're
ways.
skipping the classical era.
Quite a ways away from Bach. They're so sure of everything. Oh, all right, I'm going to play some of the symphonic etudes of Schumann. The symphonic etudes were written between the ages of 24 and 27. And they were written almost immediately after the fantasy pieces. Schumann was at this time young and, trying to be everything he wanted to be as a composer, but he knew his limitations. He hadn't had the unlimited opportunities and fabulous teachers that people like Mendelssohn had, or even Brahms, who lived in poverty but had the best teacher in Hamburg. He lived in a very small town in Germany when he was growing up, and had teachers that were there, they were neighborhood teachers, or his father arranged for the town organist at the church to teach him harmony. So it was one of those things where after a while Schumann knew more than the teachers did.
Well, he was studying to be law student. He was a law
Well,
student.
after his father died, his mother said, well, this is all very well, but you really should get a real profession, so I want you to go to law school. His father was the one that was so encouraging, but anyway, so he went to law school, but he's just not law material. So anyway, so the symphonic etudes were important to him. He wanted to really hone craftsmanship and become more sophisticated in his compositions. And this really is an example of this. And it's almost like a stepping stone to other things, because I have a feeling if he hadn't written these etudes, we wouldn't have the great piano concerto or the quintet, the piano quintet, or the symphonies. And it's still Schumann, but he was fooling around with different sonorities and trying to learn all he could, and he did it. I think he succeeded. And the theme is not his. The theme was written by an amateur musician who happened to be the father of a former fiance. And he took the theme and he made some variations. There are 12 of them. I'm going to do 4 of them. There's one I think I may not do. And I'm going to play the theme and then probably about 4.
You need a page
Some of them
turner.
are variations, some of them are just etudes.
You don't need a page turner?
I don't think so.
You'll find out.
We'll find out. And I found out this morning when I was reading about it. He decided years later that these really were not performance worthy. He didn't want them played in public. So, sorry,
daring.
Robert. And in fact, he told his wife, I don't want you to perform these in public.
Really?
Maybe
I
he
didn't know
sort of
that.
lost interest in them. I don't know. But Brahms played them in public a lot.
1/3.
One.
Yeah.
And so now our plan was for Naomi. Where's Naomi? Oh, in a different kind of a shirt. So Naomi is going to play Scriabin. Now, when I was telling the students, when I was young, we used to have Scriabin seances. We would go down a basement. I would drive an hour to some place, probably in Connecticut or Massachusetts, walk down the basement, and we would sit around a table holding hands, and they would play Scriabin. And fragrances would be.
Oh,
and
yes.
that's-
Well, Scriabin was born in 1872 and died in 1915, so he didn't live very long. He knew Rachmaninoff. They went to school together. Rachmaninoff was born in 1873. Basically, sort of three periods of his life. The early works, which he started writing when he was 14. Yeah, he started composing very early, very much influenced by Chopin. The structure is very, nothing extraordinary about that. Four bar measures, 4 measures, and another 4 measures, another 4. But harmonically, he did very interesting things. In later life, he was exploring. He got very mystical, and he had this mystic chord. Yep, that's right. Wait, no, sorry. That's C, F sharp, B flat, E, A, D. And in his later period, he wrote. He got into sounds related, different notes related to smells, to colors. He wrote a piece called Prometheus for orchestra, piano, color organ. You'd play the organ and colors would get projected. For instance, C was red, F was a deep red, A was green. He had colors. I'm going to be playing 4 little works. They're actually in reverse order of when they were written. The first one is Opus 45, which is already towards his later period. And then 2 preludes from Opus 11, which is in his early period. And then Etude Opus 2, which he wrote, I think it's Opus 2 number 1, which he wrote when he was 14. Opus 2 number 1. It just seemed like a good group.
Are any of those his left-hand ones or no?
No,
Okay.
no, I'm not doing the one for left hand. It's on my piano, but that's not going to present it. So the first work is actually Opus 45, which gets him close to his later period.
To believe that he wrote that last one when he was 14. That's strange. I like to remember with Scriabin also how nature takes revenge. He very much wanted the music to be recognized as central to the vibrations of life. And he composed this symphony of, what's it called? The last symphony of Psalms, to be performed outside with two orchestras and two choruses and soloists. He wanted the choruses to be barefoot so they feel the earth. And he conducted to make nature vibrant. And he was bitten during that concert by an insect and got poison, blood poisoning as a result, and died.
Oh my goodness, how ironic.
Nature is not kind to the people who love her.
Oh my gosh.
It also reminds me of Freud, Sigmund Freud, who developed the talking therapy. What did he die of? Cancer of the tongue. You know.
He smoked cigars.
So I warned my son, David. But anyway, now, yes. More Scriabin, yes.
Yes. Then we already gave a great introduction. Yeah, I'm going to be performing Scriabin's Opus 11, the A minor as well as the first of the set. In addition, I'm also performing Shostakovich. I have program notes from my recital. Both sets were composed, the Scriabin set was composed while Scriabin was in his teens to his 20s. And the Shostakovich Opus 34, I believe. Yep. It's a 24 preludes. Also sought to emulate older musical styles. However, this does not curtail the brash, whimsical voice of the composer. In the set's juxtaposition between what is melancholy and humorous, the first prelude begins in a contemplative and atmospheric C major. So these are the Shostakovich preludes. And the second in a more whimsical A minor. And the 20th prelude, so the first, second, and the 20th. The 20th prelude has an abrasive yet sarcastic C minor. So, I thought, Professor Abram, when we were doing my recital together, We found the process of programming these very interesting, like the musical trajectory between all 5 of these, I think, flows nicely between the mellifluous, the sarcastic, and the furious. So I hope you enjoy. So this is Scriabin's Opus 11, number 1.
It's number 20.
We'll hear from
Yes.
Robert again in the jazz piece with his friend Jaden.
Right.
And Kevin, I think, not Kevin, Stuart. Stuart.
arguing for the ball.
What's that? Yeah. I'm going to play a set of Latin and South American pieces and or inspired pieces. The first piece I'm going to play is one I wrote probably about 20 years ago, I guess, and it's called El Lingo, and I did look up the word lingo at Blanche's request, and it means a kind of slang, not slang, but vernacular for a dialect. So take it for what it will be. And I guess it was my attempt to kind of capture some Latin rhythms and try and figure out how to write them down. And so I've been playing it over the years. I enjoy playing it. Then I'm going to play a set of 3 pieces by Heitor Villa-Lobos. And pieces I'm going to be playing were written in 1917, 18, and 19, when he was in his early 30s. Villa-Lobos is a Brazilian composer. He was born in the late 1880s. And I was just quickly trying to educate myself, and realizing that, remembering that the world was a much larger place in the early 1900s, I don't think he had been abroad. So when you hear these pieces and you hear the, well, they're very different sounding, and he was not as influenced by European sounds as one might think. He'd actually, then he did go to Paris in 1922 and studied there for, studied and performed and became quite well known. He actually lived until the late 1950s. So the first piece is a Valse Mystica, which is a mystical waltz. The second piece is un verso encantado, which is a enchanted cradle, and the third piece is called a circle dance, and these were written as a collection of 3. And then I'll talk about the Hinastera one.
You'll just give the titles again when you play your piece first. Aren't you doing 3 others?
Yeah, I'm going to play the Hinastera. I'll introduce those. Should I talk about those now? No.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep going. All right. Keep
But
talking.
first play your piece.
There you go. Warm it up.
Lingo.
Okay, so the three Villalobos pieces. And one thing I just wanted to say is that a number of us listen to Pandora to kind of find music, and when you hit the Villalobos station, oddly enough, it's just all guitar music. Kind of, I don't know why. So who knows? So this is first Valse Mystica, the mystical waltz. Un berceau incantado, a magical cradle, and then Rodante, which is circle dance.
You don't need a page turner.
No, I'm good here.
Good.
here are they're called danzas argentinas, the 3 Argentine dances. They're quite well known by Finisterre, and Tina has played beautifully some of his sonatas here.
I played that too.
You played that too? Okay, I don't remember that.
That's
Okay.
great.
And I like to think of these dances as, well, the first 2 are actually called dances. The first one is the dance of the old herdsman, and the second one is the dance of the beautiful maiden. I like to think of both dances as people dancing alone. I think that these are, as opposed to when you think of the tangos, these are sounds of the pampas, of the great outdoors, rather than the city. And so a herdsman, taken, they're certainly so remote, and kind of picture him around a fire, a little fellow, and night, sheep and whatever way out there, and he's by himself. And same with the maiden. I think she's by herself too. And clearly the third piece, the dance of the arrogant cowboy, Danza del Gaucho Matrero, arrogant cowboy. And he's on the run, apparently. One of the translations I read, it was an outlaw cowboy. So he's certainly alone. He's on the run. So hopefully he won't outrun me here. We'll see.
5
No,
o'clock
no,
every
you-
morning.
No, you don't actually lately. That's why you're wondering why you keep waking up. I kind of know why you're waking up.
That's a
completely-
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
A completely different work now, and this is this
Yeah.
large work by Ed Smaldone based on 4 of Irving's paintings. Ellen, did we make a
What?
picture of the paintings?
Well, I'm working on it right now.
Okay.
All right, so the this work was based on 4. I'm sorry, these are kind of small pieces that Irving, of course, did, and I'm just a little confused about the order. So Blanche will fill me in. Out of Eden is, which one is Out of Eden? Is it this one?
What are you talking, Out of Eden?
Out of Eden is this one, is it not?
No,
Yeah. Okay. Which one is this one?
this one is The Secrets of the Earth.
Oh, okay, that's what I thought. Okay, and so this was Django.
That's Django.
And that's right there.
Yeah, Django's
And the
neck.
yellow one is,
This is Sonata.
okay,
So this is
yeah,
the,
Sonata. And
the
so
Sonata.
Out of Eden is on the stairs.
let me see, Out of Eden. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
On the stage.
All right, so Ed Smaldone based these pieces on this art. And first you hear an introduction similar to the Chopin Etude in C. Of course, his C isn't what we would think of C. Then he moves into Out of Eden, which is the one that you see as you go up the stairs. That's the one as you go up the stairs. Right. And then from there he goes into Sonata, which is this one, which is in the dining room.
You see the
Right.
elbow of the violinist.
Yes, so that's the Sonata. And then to find Secret of the Earth, you have to go down to the basement.
Oh, it's not here?
No, it's down in the basement. And next to a whole bunch, of other great pieces that you should go down there. And then we, of course, finish with this one.
What's that called?
Django's Lick.
Django's
Lick.
Lick.
So, where's the music? I do need the music to play this. No. I mean, these are not to be played by memory. Sorry, it's not going to happen.
Now, do you need a page turner or?
No, I find it more distracting. Oh, sorry. This is in case you don't like it.
I was wondering about that.
Smaldone does write some things about it. He wrote that these are, he calls them semi-abstract paintings. I don't know what he means by semi, but there we go. All right. Out of Eden is primarily, he writes a study in repeated notes, which of course are not grouped in group 4s or 3s. It's 5, then 7, then 3, then 2. And to really annoy the pianist, he puts a different metronome marking for each group.
Oh, nervy.
Yeah, that really got me, and then I finally was, you know what, I'll just find a consistent, which was like 600. And today's metronomes go up to 500, I don't know if that. It's a repeater, and they're juxtaposed with wide leaping chords. That was fun. Like the painting to which it refers. Okay? It attempts to capture the drama of the moment of expulsion. So you can imagine there's quite a traumatic moment, and also reflects in the music lyrical passages about the joys of life lost as a result of that banishment. And as I hear it, I kind of can see them looking over the fence back at Eden. Yeah, there's got to be something to keep them from going back.
An
This-
angel with a sword.
Well, yeah, that too. The sonata he writes vaguely suggestive of a chamber music duo. Haven't figured that one out yet. It's concerned with fleet passage work and abrupt registral changes all over the place in big intervals. Been interesting. In the dark-hued Secret of the Earth, 4 layers of varied sonorities. Now he has 4 different sounds going at the same time. He's got a sound down here. He's got
so you can hear these 4 things, and they all seem to be covering up the secret that we seem to be looking for. John Gazlick recalls, he writes, the animated, freewheeling style of jazz guitarist Django Reinhardt. I listen to his music on the radio. He doesn't sound like anything like the picture or like the music, in my humble opinion. It consists of 2 steadies in one. There's this ostinato drill, the left hand with large leaps, and it even is harder when I ski. When I try to play it at the tempo, he suggests, and it reminds me of when I ski. I have 2 passions, the piano and skiing. I love to ski, and when I go down steep mountain, I really do love looking over and going, you know, with all the bumps, and it always reminds me of this piece, because when I'm about a third of the way, I'm like, why did I ever choose this? To get out, what's the way? How do I get out of here? There must be a route through the forest. I mean, that's how I feel as I'm playing this piece. However, as I'm skiing, I actually think of this music. That's kind of strange. I'm sure my kids think I'm nuts. The 4 pieces, again, they have this intro and a muted epilogue. And it writes, it reinterprets Chopin's pioneering C major etude. Okay. And as much as I'd love to have a page turn of the reality, is I'm better off without. So. Give me a moment to set up here. I discovered if it's even a little sliding, I can't do this. You like that? Oh, that was the first.
That's the intro.
Thank you.